Now, Max Verstappen is, as many predicted, the 2023 Formula One world champion. The Red Bull driver sealed a third straight driver's title at the 19-lap Qatar sprint race. This after his teammate Sergio Perez crashed out and failed to stay in the title race. Perez needed a top-3 finish in the sprint race to keep that championship fight alive, but his collision with Nico Hulkenberg saw the Dutch driver cruise to glory. Australian rookie Oscar Piastri of McLaren won that sprint, with Verstappen finishing second. Joining me now to chat about Verstappen's title and the Qatar Grand Prix main race happening tonight, I'm joined by the founder of MotorZar TV and, of course, our regular analyst on Formula One, Lufefe Mayekiso. So, Fluffy, a very good morning to you. Always a pleasure chatting. So let's just get this one out the way real quick. Max Verstappen is the champion. We saw this one coming. But, I mean, you know, Perez could have tried a little bit more just to, you know, take it to another race, perhaps, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it was inevitable. Morning to all your viewers, and thank you for having me once more. Yes, I think it was inevitable that Max was always going to win this title. We've been discussing that in studio for at least the last 6 months or so. So it was only a matter of time. Sergio Perez, I feel like he's 1 foot outside of the Red Bull team now, because that's his 4th poor performance in a row. And he has not been qualifying for Q3. Things are just not going his way. And I saw in the media, he was saying that he feels like some of the criticism towards him is maybe because he's Mexican. So we saw reports that Helmut Marko was talking about how, because he's a South American, he's not as focused as maybe some of the European drivers, which I think has basically closed the chapter between Checo and the Red Bull team, in my opinion.
But could he maybe not have a point, perhaps not looking at it from, you know, where he comes from and his ethnicity being a Mexican, but could he not have a point in that he's just fighting against, you know, so much, all the odds, that the focus is all on the world champion himself and that he's now getting the crumbs in the Red Bull team? Because we do see that happen in a number of these teams where there is no equal footing. You know, there'll be the backup driver or the second driver getting the crumbs and not getting perhaps a car just as good, you know, the team strategy just as good for him as well. And that, you know, you just be there to ruffle things up for the main driver. So could he maybe not have a point that Red Bull, they're freezing him out?
Well, I think the signs are there to support his theory, because the fact that, you know, one of the top execs at Red Bull can just say that about the driver. And even earlier in the season, after his last win, I think it was in Monaco, Helmut Marko said Sergio's in a much happier place now because he knows his place. You know, because he had illusions of fighting for the title. And I mean, that was still early in the season. But he was not even allowed to fight according to what was being said if you read between the lines.
Oscar Piastri, you know, he's definitely looking like one for the future. I know we say this a lot about some of these drivers. We said it about Lando Norris. We've been saying it about George Russell as well. You know, some of these talks have also come out for the likes of Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon. But Oscar Piastri, you know, he's really taken his first season in that McLaren car that at one point didn't even look like it could do anything, and it's now winning sprint races. Is he somebody that we need to be getting excited about, or is this just one of those fleeting successes for him?
No, Oscar Piastri is the guy, Murena. You know, I said it the first time we actually spoke about him last season, if you remember, when the fiasco happened with him announcing that he would not be driving for LP, because I think that's the first time you and I had a discussion about him. But yeah, he's the guy. He's done so much already coming up to F1, and now he's just proving his pedigree. Because for me, I feel like he is even quicker than Lando Norris, and I think now he's proving that yes, he's behind in terms of the points. But that's only because he hasn't received the upgrades that Lando has received at the same time that Lando has received them. So that has put him on the back foot, because what McLaren have done as a cost-cutting measure is give the upgrades to one car and then to the other car for the following Grand Prix. And we've seen that Lando has got that 2 or 3 times this season before Piastri.
Just before I let you go, very quickly, very briefly, we now know who the world champion is. That's aside. He's a 3-time world champion. He's sitting there with the likes of Ayrton Senna. Who's going to be finishing second behind Max Verstappen on the standings?
Well, Lewis is in 3rd place at the minute. I think he's on 194 points. And Sergio's on 223, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm interested to see if, because Sergio obviously now has just been deteriorating as the season has progressed, and Lewis and Mercedes have been progressing. So for me, my money would be on Lewis, even though there's only 5 races left and it's not much of a deficit. There's still the sprint race, I think, in Sao Paulo. So that's another opportunity to close more points. So I would say Lewis, for me, will finish second in the championship.
Well,
but let's see how it goes.
We'll definitely chat about it after Abu Dhabi at the end of this season. Of course, it's going to be coming up in a couple of months' time. But for now, I'm going to let you go. Lufefe, thank you very much. As always, it's a pleasure speaking to you. We'll be chatting again very soon. Hopefully, next time it'll be, in studio. It's always a great pleasure having you sitting next to me as we unpack, the beauty that is Formula One. But yes, it is confirmed now. The 2023 Formula One world title belongs to Max Verstappen. He is now officially a 3-time world champion, sitting there with some of the greatest to ever compete in this sport.